The silence that followed was thick, but it wasn't empty. It pulsed like something alive between them. The car sped down winding roads that unfurled like dark ribbon through the countryside. The last sliver of daylight bleeding into a storm-colored sky, Arabella clenched her fists in her lap. "I don't know why you're doing this." Ashton didn't glance her way. "Neither do I." That made her pause. He didn't follow up. He just kept driving, eyes fixed ahead, fingers relaxed on the wheel, posture irritatingly kamaz. If this weren't the weirdest night of her life. Finally, the road narrowed, veering off into what looked like a long gravel driveway framed by weeping trees. Arabella frowned. "Where the hell are we?" Ashton didn't answer. Not with words, the car came to a stop before an old iron gate. Beyond it, a crumbling estate house, swallowed by ivy and thyme, with moss climbing the stones and wildflowers spilling through. Broken garden paths. It was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with money, like the kind of place that remembered things. Ashton stepped out, walked around, opened her door. She didn't move. "You planning to drag me again?" she asked. "If I have to." She sighed dramatically, then slid out barefoot on the gravel because of course she hadn't bothered with shoes. The sundress fluttered against her knees as the wind picked up. He pushed the gate open. It groaned like a warning. She followed. They walked in silence toward the front steps, cracked marble half swallowed by vines. No lights, no cameras, no looming staff. "This was my mother's house," Ashton said suddenly. Arabella stopped short. "She bought it when I was 6, said London was choking her. She used to bring me here during the summers, just the two of us, before she got sick." Arabella swallowed, unsure what to say. He looked at the front door, fingers brushing the rusted brass handle like it was sacred. "I haven't brought anyone here. Not even my father knows. I still keep it." "Why now?" she asked, barely above a whisper. He turned. "Because you wanted out? And this is where I go when I want out too?" The door creaked open. Inside was cool, dark, the air heavy with old roses and dust, but it wasn't abandoned. Books still lined the shelves. A half-burned candle sat by a velvet armchair. A tea set rested on a side table like someone might return at any moment. Arabella stepped in slowly, quietly, as if not to wake ghosts. He walked ahead and lit a single lamp near the fireplace. The room came alive in soft gold. He didn't look at her, just moved toward a wooden cabinet and pulled out a small record player. A quiet vinyl crackle rose, followed by the slow jazz of an old Ella Fitzgerald song. Arabella stared at him. "You're full of surprises." Ashton finally looked at her, and this time he didn't look. Through her, he looked at her, barefoot, wind-ruffled, half furious, half lost. "You said you wanted me to get lost forever," he murmured. She stiffened. He stepped closer. "I almost did," he said. "But then I realized, if I go, you'll never know the truth." Arabella crossed her arms. "Which truth?" "That this marriage is a contract. That I'm just a pawn in your PR strategy." His voice was barely a murmur. "No, that I never hated you. Not even for a second." She blinked. "I watched you grow up," he said, taking another step. "Loud, defiant, wild. You were always fire, Arabella and I." He paused. "I was always too cold to touch it." Her throat tightened. "Then why marry me?" "Because I thought I could survive the fire. That if I didn't feel anything, it wouldn't hurt." And now, he was standing in front of her now, close enough to hear the hitch in her breath. "Now," he said softly, "I'm not so sure." She should have slapped him, or kissed him, or screamed. Instead, she whispered, "You're not what I thought either." A beat. Then he reached for her hand, hesitant, not like the man who bathed her, not like the man who drove her against her will. Like a man unsure if he deserved to be touched, she let him fingers laced. He didn't kiss her. He didn't need to. They just stood there, in a forgotten house, holding hands like it was something sacred. And outside, the wind rose gently through the trees. The music curled through the old room like smoke. Arabella stood still, their fingers still barely interlaced, her skin prickling where he touched her. She wasn't sure if the warmth in her chest was resentment burning off, or something dangerously close to longing. Ashton didn't move closer, didn't pull her into a kiss or a speech. He just stood there, watching her, giving her space to run but not letting go of her hand. It was maddening. It was gentle. It was the first real thing he'd done since their wedding. "You could have said that days ago," she whispered, her voice barely audible beneath the soft saxophone playing. "I didn't know how," he admitted. "And now suddenly, you do know," he said. "But I know I want to try." The song changed, another vinyl hiss, another ache of melody, and she felt her fingers tighten around his without meaning to. "You dance?" he asked softly. She stared at him. "Do I look like the type of girl who lets a man lead?" "No," he said. "You look like the type who dares him to keep up. A laugh almost escaped her throat. Almost. He raised her hand, then the other, and placed one on his shoulder, tentative slows, if afraid she might slap him at any second. She didn't. He rested his palm lightly on her waist. The heat of it bled through the thin fabric of her dress. They moved in slow circles, barely a sway, more breath than dance. But Arabella's heartbeat was wild and uneven, thundering in her chest like something escaping. "You still confuse me," she murmured. "That makes two of us," he said. Silence again. Not cold this time, heavy with unsaid things. He was closer now, his cheek near her temple, his breath warming the side of her face, and Gotti smelled like sandalwood and late summer rain. "Do you regret it?" she asked suddenly. "Marrying me?" Ashton pulled back slightly, just enough to meet her eyes. He looked at her for a long moment, long enough that she felt her pulse trip. "No," he said, "but I regret not being honest. With me, with myself." She didn't answer. Couldn't. The space between them was a razor's edge now. One move forward and they'd fall. One move back and they'd lose the moment forever. She made the first move. Her fingers slid from his shoulder to the nape of his neck. Slow testing. He didn't stop her. His other hand tightened on her waist, not enough to trap, just enough to hold her steady. Her lips were near his jaw now, breath brushing skin. "You make me furious," she whispered. "I know. You drive me insane. I know." Her mouth was barely a breath from his, and yet his lips crashed into hers before she could finish. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't practiced. It was months of repression and silence and misunderstood glances, crashing together in one desperate, uneven kiss. Arabella gasped into it, fingers tangling in his shirt, his hands gripping her waist like he was afraid she might vanish. She broke the kiss first, panting, cheeks flushed, eyes wide. "That was not professional," he muttered, breathless. She blinked, then laughed, a real laugh, sharp and stunned and a little wicked. "I should slap you," she whispered. "You should," he said, kissing her again. This time it was slower, deeper. Her fingers fisted in his collar. He lifted her effortlessly onto the low velvet sofa, kneeling between her knees as their mouths tangled again. No games, no acting, just heat and hunger and something neither of them had dared name until now, when she leaned her forehead against his, their breath mingling in the dim lamplight. He whispered against her lips, "Stay here with me tonight." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she wrapped her arms around his neck, pulled him in again, and said, "Make me forget everything." But this, and he did. They moved like a storm, and like forgiveness, like fire and surrender. No rules, no logic. Just two people who'd built walls for so long they didn't know how to stop until now, until this, when they finally lay tangled together on the worn sofa. Her head on his chest, the record clicking softly at the end of its track. Arabella whispered, "You still make me furious?" His fingers trailed down her back. Good. And for the first time since their wedding, she fell asleep in his arms. Peaceful, angry home. Morning broke, soft and gray through the tall, vine-framed windows. Arabella stirred first. Her eyes blinked open slowly, adjusting to the golden haze of early light pooling through the gauzy curtains. For a second, she forgot where she was. The velvet sofa beneath her felt too plush, the scent of sandalwood too near. Then she felt the steady rise and fall beneath her cheek. Ashton, his arm was still draped around her waist, their legs tangled. One of her fingers rested against his bare collarbone, the skin there warm, his heartbeat slow. She blinked again, sat up slightly. He didn't stir. He slept like a man unused to rest. Jaw unclenched, breath even, lashes casting faint shadows across his cheekbones. It made him look younger, softer, like the version of himself she hadn't known existed until last night. She brushed a thumb lightly against his cheek, just once, then stopped herself. This didn't change anything, except maybe everything. Arabella slowly rose, legs shaky but steady enough. Her white dress was wrinkled, the hem twisted from sleep. She didn't bother fixing it. She padded quietly toward the kitchen she had glimpsed last night, hoping there was tea or coffee, or something that didn't taste like heartbreak in a cup. The kitchen was surprisingly intact. Old-world charm met silent upkeep. A kettle rested on the stove. A tin of loose-leaf tea sat beside it. She worked in silence, hands steady, even if her mind wasn single quotes tea. By the time Ashton entered, barefoot, hair tousled, shirt half-buttoned, the tea was steeping. He paused in the doorway. She didn't look up. "Morning, husband." A quiet beat. Then, "Morning, wife." She turned just enough to see him leaning against the frame, arms crossed loosely, watching her like she might vanish. "How long have you been awake?" she asked. "Long enough to consider faking sleep?" She arched a brow. "Why?" He shrugged. Didn't want to break the moment. She rolled her eyes, but her lips twitched. He walked toward her slowly. "Last night, don't," she interrupted. "If you say it was a mistake, I will dump this tea on your head." He smiled, really smiled, and it knocked the breath from her lungs. "I wasn't going to say that." "Good. I was going to say, it was real." Her hands stilled. She looked at him. Really looked. No walls, no performance. Just Ashton. Langley, in a half-buttoned shirt and yesterday's sin? "What now?" she asked softly. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I don't want to go back to pretending." Arabella poured the tea into 2 mismatched porcelain cups. She handed him one. He took it with both hands. Their fingers brushing, they drank in silence until a phone buzzed. Loud, sharp, invasive. Ashton frowned. Reaching for the phone he had left on the counter, he glanced at the screen. His jaw tightened. "What is it?" she asked. He turned the phone to show her. It was a headline. "Langley Heir's Secret Bride. Who is Arabella Vane?" Below it, a paparazzi shot of her stepping out of the manor days ago in that same white sundress. Her face turned, hair wild in the wind. His arm barely visible in the frame. Arabella's blood ran cold. More headlines were already appearing. Fake. Wedding, strategic merger, sources say. And inside the scandal of the year, she stared at the screen. "They found us." "They always do," Ashton said grimly. She looked up at him. "What do we do?" He didn't blink. "We stop. Running? What does that mean?" "It means we go back to what?" He stepped closer. To the house, to the city, to face them. But this time, together. Arabella's throat tightened. Her heart roared against her ribs. "You're not afraid?" she asked. "I am," he said quietly, "but not of them. I'm afraid of losing this before it even has a chance." She blinked. Slowly. Then she reached for his hand again. Same as last night. She laced their fingers and whispered, "Then let's give it one." The car ride back to the city was silent at first. Not uncomfortable, just still. Arabella stared. Out the tinted window as the manor faded behind them, replaced by long winding roads, steel-gray skies, and the creeping hum of traffic. Her fingers traced invisible lines along her lap, while Ashton's hand rested on the gearshift, unmoving, but tense. She glanced at him once. His jaw was set, his gaze fixed on the road. He hadn't said a word since they agreed to return. "Do you regret it?" she asked, voice quiet. His hand tightened slightly. "No," she nodded. "Good, because if you did, I wasn't going to let you." A pause, then barely he smirked. "That's the most Halebrook thing you've ever said. I've got plenty more where that came from." The city rose on the horizon like a bruise tall, silver, waiting. As they approached, traffic thickened. Horns blared. The rhythm of civilization returned. Arabella reached for her phone again. Another headline pinged. "Arabella Halebrook marries Ashton Langley, but who benefits?" Comments were brutal. Some accused her of being a social climber. Others speculated she was pregnant. A few said she'd trapped him to save her father's company. She turned the screen off. Ashton pulled into the underground garage beneath the Langley Tower, his company's HQ. Security met them instantly. Expressions stiff. "Sir, ma'am. There's been activity upstairs." He nodded. "Expected." Arabella squared her shoulders. "Let's go then." The elevator doors opened to chaos. Phones ringing. Assistants whispering. Legal advisors in the hallway. Arabella could feel the tension like static in the air. Half the people stared at her with barely veiled curiosity. The other half looked away entirely. At the end of the corridor, the boardroom, doors were wide open. Inside, Edward Halebrook, her father, sitting at the long glass table, suit pressed, eyes like steel. Next to him, a woman Arabella didn't recognize, mid-30s. Slick bun, tablet in hand, cool eyes. PR? Maybe. Or something colder. She and Ashton stepped inside. The chatter died instantly. Edward looked up. "Ah," he said. "The newlyweds." Arabella didn't flinch. "You look disappointed." "That's new." Edward stood. His tone was razor-thin. "You were meant to lie low, not start a media war." "I didn't leak the marriage." He arched a brow. "Did you leak the bathtub?" Ashton moved before she could respond. Calm. Measured. "We'll handle the press." Edward turned to him. "This isn't just about press. This is about optics. About investment confidence. You think shareholders want to see the Langley heir playing nursemaid in a bathrobe while his bride traipses around in silk?" Arabella stepped forward. "You mean shareholders like you?" The room stilled. Edward's eyes narrowed. "You forget who kept you in diamonds, Arabella." She stepped closer. "And you forget that I never asked for any of this. I gave you options, power, a name that could last centuries. You gave me a leash," she said sharply, "and a husband I wasn't allowed to speak to." Ashton's voice broke the tension. Low, even. but final. She's not on a leash anymore. Every head turned. Edward's face didn't change, but his posture did. A flicker of something unreadable crossed his expression. I see, Edward said slowly. So now you're in love. Arabella didn't blink. No. Everyone froze. She turned toward Ashton, heart loud in her chest. But I'm not ashamed of what we have. Ashton's mouth tightened. His eyes didn't leave hers. We're figuring it out, he said, voice steady. That's more than most people in this room can say. Edward stared at them both. Then finally he sat down. Fine, handle it your way. You've got until the end of the quarter. After that, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. The meeting dissolved. Arabella and Ashton walked out together. The elevator closed behind them. Silence. She didn't speak until they reached the lobby. He doesn't care about us. No, Ashton said. He only cares about how people see us. Arabella exhaled. Then maybe we give them something to look at. He turned to her. You want a real fight? No, she said, stepping closer. I want a real story. And as the doors opened again, the cameras waiting outside. The flashbulbs already starting, Ashton took her hand and didn't let go. The flashbulbs exploded as soon as they stepped out. A wave of reporters surged forward, microphones and shouted questions filling the summer air like gunfire. Ashton, are you and Arabella faking it for the board? Mrs. Langley, is it true? You left River Maddox at the altar for a better payout? Ashton, is the Halebrook merger still happening, or is this just a publicity stunt? The security team closed in, forming a wall of black suits between them and the chaos. But Ashton didn't rush her into the car. He paused. Arabella realized it a moment later. He was giving her the choice. Run or own it. She squared her shoulders. Her heels clicked as she stepped into the light. Arabella, one of the photographers shouted. What do you say to critics who call this marriage a business deal? She smiled, cool, confident, terrifying in its grace. I say business is booming. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked. Some gasped. Ashton's hand brushed against hers. Mrs. Langley, another asked, do you regret not marrying River Maddox? Her gaze didn't flinch. I regret wasting time on men who don't know what commitment means. A small muscle jumped in Ashton's jaw. The camera caught it. Mr. Langley, any comments on your new brides? He turned, gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. But her future? That's mine. Arabella almost laughed at the audible gasp that passed through the reporters. They slipped into the car seconds later. Doors slamming. Chaos muted behind glass. Silence bloomed. She looked at him. That was unexpectedly savage. He stared out the window, then said, You looked like you needed a sword. She didn't thank him. He didn't expect her to. That night, dinner was quiet. The staff served pan-seared salmon, grilled leeks, lemon risotto. Neither touched much of it. Arabella sat at her side of the long dining table watching him. Ashton. He didn't look up. She tried again. Why did you carry me out of the bath that night? His fork paused midair. I don't know, he said. She hated that answer. It was honest. You said you're not my boyfriend? I'm not. Then what are you? He looked at her now, gaze piercing. I'm your husband. The way he said it wasn't romantic. It wasn't warm, but it was certain. And that means what, exactly? She whispered. He didn't answer. Later, in the dark, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling staring. Back then, soft footsteps. The sound of the door opening. She didn't turn. She knew it was him. The bed dipped. The air shifted. And still, neither of them spoke. Not until he reached out his hand, slipping gently over hers beneath the sheets. I don't know what this is, she whispered. But I don't want it to be war. He exhaled. I don't know how to do anything else. Her fingers tightened around his. We'll learn, she said. Or we'll burn. Silence. Then he said, Good night, Arabella. And she whispered, Good night, Ashton. But neither of them slept. Not for a long time, because love wasn't the enemy, but fear was. And they were just beginning to name it. The next morning began to, quietly. Arabella was already awake before the sun broke over the hills. She hadn't moved, not even when Ashton's alarm buzzed once, sharp and soft. He rose, wordless, slid from the bed without disturbing the sheets, and disappeared into the bathroom. Steam hissed behind the door, water running again. Always. Again, when he returned, towel slung around his waist, he didn't look at her. Not once. She watched from beneath the covers, eyes half-lidded. She wasn't pretending to be asleep. She just wasn't ready to speak yet. Ashton, she said finally, voice rasped from silence. He paused mid-button at his collar. I want in. He turned his head slowly. To what? He asked. To whatever meeting you're about to have? She sat up, brushing hair from her face. You said this was a merger? A business arrangement? Then treat me like a partner, not furniture. His jaw ticked. It's not your fight. Maybe not. But I wear your name. I signed the damn contract. If the sharks are circling, I want to see their teeth. He studied her for a long time. Then, finally, with a nod so slight it was nearly imperceptible, he said, "Be ready in 20. Arabella stood at the top of the staircase like a blade unsheathed, tailored ivory trousers, silk blouse, low heels. Her hair swept back, makeup subtle but razor sharp. When she descended, the entire household staff turned as if they'd heard thunder. Ashton waited at the bottom of the stairs, already on the phone. He glanced up, did a double take. Didn't smile, but his eyes held something flickering. She joined him without a word. The car ride was quiet again. But this time, it was not cold. It was charged. A storm bank of questions hung between them. When they arrived at the Langley private offices, an obsidian glass tower piercing the London sky, Arabella felt the shift immediately. Staff turned, whispered, "So, this is the new Mrs. Langley." Inside the boardroom, the tension was thick as velvet. 12 men in suits, 2 women, 1 lawyer. All older, all powerful, all watching her. She recognized one of them instantly. Victor Hawthorne, family friend. Or more accurately, the snake who'd once tried to buy her silence about River's past. "Ashton," Victor said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We expected you alone." Arabella spoke before Ashton could. "And disappoint you all." "Never." Victor blinked. Several others stiffened. Ashton said nothing, but beneath the table his hand brushed against hers once. Light as air and gone, the meeting began. She listened, took notes, intervened once sharp, elegant and ruthless, when they tried to bypass her with corporate jargon. "You think because I'm married in, I don't understand asset leverage," she said smoothly. "Try harder." By the end, even Victor kept his mouth shut. When the room cleared, Ashton stayed behind. Arabella reached for her folder, but he stopped her with a single word. "Wait." She turned slowly. He looked at her. "You work." "Impressive," he said, as if the word was foreign. She tilted her head. "What, did I not match the wallpaper well enough?" His mouth twitched. "You don't match anything," he said. "And thank God for it." They didn't talk again until the drive home, and even then it wasn't words that mattered. It was the way Ashton rested his hand on the console between them and didn't pull it away when her fingers found his dot. No fireworks, no declarations, just contact. Just proof that the war was still on. But maybe, just maybe, it was no longer between them, it was around them, and they were. She couldn't sleep. Arabella lay in the enormous bed, moonlight slanting across the sheets, her fingers brushing the spot between them where Ashton's hand had rested hours earlier. She should have felt triumphant. She'd held her own at that meeting. She'd seen the twitch in Ashton's jaw, the one he did when surprised and impressed. Even if he'd rather swallow glass than admit it. But, instead, all she felt was a weight in her chest. A pulse of something she hadn't named yet. At 2:13 a.m., her phone buzzed. Blocked. Number. She frowned, hesitating for half a breath before answering. "Hello." Silence. Then a voice. Male, cold, familiar. "Mrs. Langley," the voice purred. "Or should I say Miss Halebrook?" She froze. "Who is this?" "You'll find out soon enough. Check your inbox." The line went dead. Her stomach turned. Cold. She opened her email. There it was. An anonymous message with a single link. Subject: "Does he know who you really are?" Arabella clicked a video, blurry, taken from an old phone. Her, younger, maybe 17, screaming at her father in the marble foyer of Halebrook Manor. "You can't control everything, Edward. You're a child." Her father's voice thundered. "One mistake and you'll ruin us." "Then maybe I want to ruin you," Arabella had shouted. "You think money makes you God? It makes you a monster." The clip ended abruptly. She stared at the screen, blood rushing in her ears. Her hands shook. Attached was a note. "One scream and your world cracks. Imagine what a full scream could do. Tell your husband the truth, or we will." Down the hall, Ashton stood at his desk, staring at the second message he'd received. That hour it was a printed photo, hand-delivered, of her, Arabella, alone in a restaurant 2 nights before their wedding. Across from her, River Maddox. The timestamp was unmistakable. Ashton's jaw clenched. He turned the photo over. Scrawled in thick black ink were 5 words. "She was never just yours." He stared at the handwriting for a long time. Then, slowly he picked up the photo, carried it to the fireplace, and tossed it into the flames. He watched it curl and blacken, but he didn't move to wake her. Not yet. Morning came cold and gray. Arabella barely touched her coffee. She hadn't told him about the email. Not yet. She didn't know if he knew. Across the table, Ashton read the paper.com. Silent, unreadable. His jaw was tight. But then, again it always was. The silence stretched like wire between them, until, finally, he said without looking up, "Are there any secrets I should be aware of, Arabella?" Her breath caught. She looked up slowly. "Define secrets." He turned a page. "Let's say the kind that send anonymous emails." Her chest squeezed so he knew, or at least suspected. "And if there were," she asked, "would you tell?" "Me, yours first." His eyes lifted sharply, that glacier blue stare pinning her like an insect. "I don't trade confessions." "No," she said. "You just bury them under expensive suits and cold silences." He stood. So did she. Their chairs scraped the marble at the same time. It sounded like a duel starting. He stepped toward her. "Slowly, tell me, Arabella, were you ever going to mention you saw River the night before our wedding?" She didn't flinch. "I wasn't there to see him. I was there to say goodbye." His voice dar. "Kend, you expect me to believe that?" "I don't expect anything from you," she snapped. "You made that clear when you said this marriage meant nothing." He was in front of her now, inches away. "Then why does it feel like you're trying so hard to prove otherwise?" Her throat tightened. "Because I don't want to be owned by my past." "Too late," he said. "We all are." And then, to her absolute shock, he reached into his breast pocket, pulled out a folded paper, and held it out. "What is this?" "Read it." She unfolded it with trembling hands. It was an old police report. Ashton Langley, age 19, charges, assault, dismissed. Records sealed. Arabella's mouth parted in disbelief. "You," she whispered. "I don't bury everything," he said, voice low. "Just the parts that would have ruined what little family I had left." She looked up. "You fought someone?" He nodded once. She blinked. "For what?" He stared at her a long time, then said quietly, "For someone who didn't deserve to be hurt." The room held its breath. Arabella set the paper down slowly. "You said you're not my boyfriend?" she murmured. "I'm not." She stepped closer. "Then what are you?" He said nothing, but this time when she leaned in, he didn't pull away. Later, that night Arabella found the envelope on her pillow, unmarked. Cream paper. No handwriting. Just her name typed cleanly. Arabella. Her fingers hesitated, then tore it open. Inside. A small black notebook. Worn frayed edges. A single name scratched on the inside cover. River. Maddox. Her breath caught. It was his journal. The first page was written in his scrawl. She recognized it, quick, chaotic, brilliant, when he was in his moods. "I still think about her." She wasn't supposed to mean anything, but Arabella Halebrook got under my skin, and when her father threatened me, I should have left. Instead, I lied. I made her think I loved her, because I wanted revenge, but then I couldn't stop. Until he offered the money, and I said yes. She stopped reading. Her knees went weak. There it was. Confirmation, the photos, the betrayal, the heartbreak. It had all been real, and worse, deliberate. She sank down on the edge of the bed, hands trembling. She felt hollow, then angry. Then cold. Downstairs. Ashton stood in his private study, staring at the chessboard. Black queen in hand. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He picked it up. The voice on the line was different this time. Female, distorted. "You still think this is just about her?" the voice said. Smooth as poison. Ashton didn't respond. "She's not your weakness," the woman continued. "You are, and we're going to watch you burn." Then, a beep. He looked down. A single message appeared on the screen. Ticked. "Langley, tell her what really happened in Prague. Or we will." Ashton stared at it for a long moment. His expression didn't change, but the way his fingers tightened around the Black Queen, they snapped the piece. Clean and two. The next morning, Arabella stood in the sunroom, hair wild. The journal clutched to her chest. She hadn't slept. She didn't knock. She stormed into Ashton's study without warning. He looked up from his laptop, utterly composed. "Good morning. Don't good morning me." She flung the journal onto his desk. He stared at it, then looked back at her. "You read it. You're damn right I read it. Then, I know he lied. I know he took money. I know my father arranged it all." Ashton tilted his head. "And you came to me." "Why? Because I want to know why you married me." A pause. "I told you," he said. "It was a merger." "Bullshit." He met her eyes. For once, no mask. Just silence. Then, "Because I owed your father." She froze. "What?" He stood, walking around the desk, his expression unreadable. His voice was low. 10 years ago in Prague, I made a mistake, one that could have destroyed my company before it ever launched. Your father bailed me out, quietly, cleanly, and then he named his price." She blinked me. I said no for years. Then last month, he said you'd agreed. I didn't ask why. I didn't care. I figured, you had your reasons. Her breath shook. You thought I wanted this? He didn't answer. She took a slow step back. You never cared. His voice was quieter. I didn't know how, and now? Silence again. He looked at her like she was a secret he didn't dare say out loud. Then finally, now I care too much to lie. She swallowed hard. And what if I can't trust you? His eyes darkened. Then don't. But no, this whoever's threatening. You, they're not done, she stiffened. You think it's about me? I think it's about us. And someone wants to make sure we never become real. Her heart pounded. You still think this is fake? He took a step closer. I don't know what this is. Another step, but I know what I want it to be. She met his eyes, jaw tight, breath sharp, and then the door burst open. The butler rushed in, face pale. Sir, madam, there is something you need to see. They followed him through the hall down to the courtyard. A package sat on the stone steps, wrapped in black cloth. Ashton opened it slowly. Inside, a wedding photo of them, Arabella in her gown, Ashton in his tux, but the glass had been shattered right over her face. A note was tucked inside. She should have chosen death over you. Next time, she will. Arabella's breath caught. Ashton grabbed her hand instinctively. She didn't pull. Away, not this time. Courtyard just passed. Midnight. Arabella's breath came in ragged gasps. The shattered photo in her hands felt like a wound reopening. Ashton stood beside her, his fingers tight around hers. The threat wasn't just words, it was real. Who in God's name would do this? She whispered, voice trembling. He didn't reply. He crouched beside the shards of glass and the photo, tucking the note into his coat pocket. Arabella's tears fell silently. She wrapped her arms around herself, but the cold cut deeper than the night air. Ashton stepped toward her. His hand brushed her cheek, gentle and sure. The same hand that had calmed her in the bath held hers through that moment in the house, and now steadied her in the darkness. We need a plan, he said softly. She nodded, voice raw. What do we do now? He rose. Get inside. You're safe there. But I'll call Carver, he interrupted. He'll meet me at the study. We're locking down the estate. Arabella stared at him, a flicker of anger igniting her. No, will you calm down like the wall man you've practiced? Being you can't just stand, I don't want an army here. He met her eyes. I don't care what you want. Her heart thudded. Not his usual calm resolve. This was war. He squeezed her hand. I care what keeps you alive. Study. 2 hours later, the front door was locked, the windows secured. Carver, plainclothes armed, calculating, stood by the fireplace, eyes sweeping the room. Ashton paced, pinching his forehead. This goes deeper than River. We're dealing with something that loves to play God. Arabella crossed one arm, protective. Edward said, Prague. You missing something? He did. Ashton frowned. The fixer said, Edward saved me. After that Prague incident, but nothing about a threat? He tapped his pocket. He handed me a manila envelope, that night, photos of River and you. She stared, shocked. He knew this would come. He inclined his head. He orchestrated it. Her pulse thundered. Why? To control me. And you're letting him? He closed his eyes. Because if he's behind this, I need leverage. On him, too. She sank into the leather chair. So we're playing a game with a monster. He offered her his chair. Yes. They sat across from each other. Arabella's voice was small. What now? He slid the shattered photo across the desk. We go back to Prague. Her eyes widened. You're serious? He nodded. They'll never kill you here, but if we can uncover what was really happening 17 years ago, we can stop this. She swallowed, fear and determination warring in her gaze. I'm with you. Prague, summer 2008. A memory rekindled soul. Heat. Narrow cobblestone streets. A younger Ashton Langley, 19, strides through the city's old quarter, dark eyes, sharp, posture defensive. He's alone, vulnerable, clutching a leather satchel thick with stocked notebooks and a single purpose: pitch his fledgling tech startup to potential investors. Hiding in the city's leafy cafes, from the cafe window, a well-dressed man in his 50s watches Ashton's every move. Edward Halebrook, impeccably suited, shadowed in sun-drenched wireframes. He's evaluating Ashton-like property. Inside the cafe, Ashton pitches with fire, passion, confidence. He's convincing. Then Edward steps in. An impressive idea. Edward purrs once the meeting ends, voice velvet and waiting. But you need more than ideas. You'll need backing and silent partners. Ashton narrows his eyes. I'm not looking for handouts. Edward leans forward, his expression unreadable. This isn't a handout, it's a lifeline. Flash to an elegant office. Edward slides Ashton a manila envelope over the polished mahogany desk. White letters engraved on green cardstock. Investment agreement. Confidential. Ashton opens it. Terms favorable, funding guaranteed. But one clause catches his breath. Subject to acquisition of full rights to company. Co-founder rights. Reserved by Halebrook Industries. Below is Edward's signature. Ashton's knuckles whiten as he grips the envelope. He wants to fight. God knows he needs the money. Cut to, that evening, Old Prague apartment, Ashton's sanctuary. He sits at a scattered desk, heart pounding, sweat sticking his shirt to his back. He types a terse email, accepted, awaiting transfer and files. Then he stands, opens the ancient window, moonlight hitting him like truth. Far below, distant, church bells toll. He stares at the skyline, chest tight with choice. Flash to next morning, Ashton hurries down the street. A sedan pulls up, a man in the back hands him an envelope. Inside, a black leather-bound journal with his name embossed. In gold, an early version of River Maddox's journal, clearly planted. Edward steps from the other side of the car. Your first run-in with River? He says quietly. Ashton's mind blurs. A memory flashes. A drunken Barra, familiar but older River. Or another man entirely mocking Ashton's ignorance. A push. A shove too far. Crack of glass. Scream. The bar gone blurry in shards of light and rage. He steps backward. Edward smiles with quiet satisfaction. You don't even know what you've done nor who's been watching. Ashton blinks. Clutches the journal. It's River's handwriting inside, not his. Back to present, Arabella stares at Ashton in stunned silence. So, River was a setup, she whispers. He was a plant. Ashton meets her gaze. That night in Prague, River flipped. He saw that I wasn't just desperate. I was vulnerable. She threads her fingers through her hair. This was planned. He nods, voice tight with regret. Your father pulled every string. He planted River. He used me. Why? Her voice is broken. Why involve me? He takes an anguished breath. Because life isn't clean. If he could edge me between debt and marriage, he could control both of us. Arabella presses a hand to her chest. But he couldn't know we'd actually fall for each other. She blinks. Ashton steps toward her. Tentatively, I'm so sorry. I never meant to lie. We're more than a deal now. She drags a breath. We are. But now we know the furnace started before either of us lit the match. He nodded, sweaty determination on his face. Then we find the fuse box and cut the power. They stepped onto the cobblestones of Prague at dusk. Ashton led Arabella through alleyways lit by lanterns, each echoing footstep a step toward their truth. Wordlessly, they arrived at a nondescript door, the fixer's safe house. Ashton's hand brushed hers. She met his gaze. He nodded. Inside, a single table, a laptop open, and a thin folder labeled River Maddox. Ashton slid it toward Arabella. She opened it. Inside, surveillance stills River meeting Edward's fixer before the bar incident. Signed. Receipts. Kodachrome snapshots. Everything. Ashton cleared his throat. He made it all happen. Not River. Arabella looked up. Show me his name. Ashton unzipped a hidden pocket in the folder. A flash drive. Everything Edward wanted buried. On here? A soft click. They both froze. Doors opened behind them. Footsteps. They stood back to back, the folder between them. Strangers once more, but no longer apart. She stared at the folder, her hands trembling. You're saying River didn't cheat? Ashton nodded once. It was staged. By who? Your father? His fixer? Look. He tapped the photo. River's drink being spiked in the bar, the timestamp matching the night of the supposed betrayal. Arabella swallowed hard, and the girl, actress, paid. I traced the funds her legs gave out. She dropped into the chair. Why show me now? Because you deserve the truth, even if it hurts. She looked up, eyes rimmed red. You could have shown me before the wedding. I could have, he said, but I didn't want to win you by destroying you. She closed the folder. And now you get to decide what to do. Footsteps echoed outside. A soft knock. Ashton stiffened. Arabella stood. Is that the fixer? Ashton said. He's ready to talk. She opened the door. The man stepped in, pale, older, hands folded. I have something to confess, ChatGPT said. I was ordered to ruin River, the fixer said. Arabella's jaw tightened. Ordered by my father. He nodded. He said the boy was a threat to your legacy, that you'd throw it all away for love. Ashton stepped forward. The photos, the video, all mine, the fixer admitted. Staged, paid. Your father watched everything. Arabella turned away, breathing hard. And River was beaten, the fixer said quietly, told to leave the country or die. She gripped the edge of the table. Where is he now? Ashton answered. We don't. No, he disappeared. No records. Nothing digital. She turned to him. You knew this and didn't stop the wedding. I didn't want to be your second choice, Ashton said. She stared at him. I didn't want to be a consolation prize. Arabella's voice was low. Get out. Both of you. They hesitated. I said get out. The door slammed behind them. She stood alone, tears silent, and somewhere deep in the manor, a phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Belle, I'm safe. R. Asterisk, her fingers trembled as she opened the message. Belle, I'm safe. R. She stared. Then another ping. Didn't know if I should reach out. Saw the wedding. Thought you chose him. Her heart raced. I didn't, she typed. They lied to me. Where are you? A pause. Off grid. Highlands. I couldn't risk your father finding you again. He won't. He can't. Not anymore. Another pause. Do you want me to come back? She blinked, breath caught. Yes, please. I'm not free yet, but I'm trying. She pressed send. Silence. Then, I'll come for you. Wait for me.